Want to talk?
Yeah, welcome to number one Bengals podcast. We got John Sheeran today. He's gonna be
John
telling
the
us
Rock
about
Sheeran, the
what
one and
the
only,
Bengals are
bringing
doing
the
wrong.
facts.
Yeah, and we
We got
got
Hoji the
Patrick.
electric Smoji, bringing the ingredients for greatness. And of course, never forget the Daddy McDuke, who technically has to be on the show for us to have the show. And of course, Bridget Jankar, without whom we wouldn't have any human resources.
That
Well, we legally couldn't have the show without Bridget.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
that seems more important than anything.
Number one Bagel Podcast.
subscribe. There we go. All right.
Yeah.
We're
All right.
here.
Cut the band off. There you go.
There we go.
So new song, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So, look, Cincinnati Bengals. John.
Oh yeah.
Why me?
A Cinderella. You know what's funny? They called it a Cinderella story. I don't remember Cinderella ending like this.
Is the song still playing?
It is still playing. It's playing in the background somewhere.
Well, I think it's gonna play
you
throughout
have
the
a
show. I
problem
think
with
that's
this
the
song?
new.
Well, we have to charge the band per hour.
All right. No more
They'll
song.
get tired.
Just testing your hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Very proud of you.
I did a hearing test. I had to go to the doctor and get a hearing test, and we found out I can hear like those types of sounds, but it's like really low bass. Can't hear.
Look, guys.
Whoa.
Cincinnati
Thank you for
Bengals.
your compassion.
Turn up the bass. Yeah.
Yeah.
But are you okay, Bridget?
I'm great.
Yeah.
Daddy-O's voice is still very much in the decibel range that I can hear.
Yes, he has the voice of a toddler,
Right.
an
Look,
evil capitalist toddler.
The Cincinnati Bengals, folks, that's what we're here for. They had another heartbreaking loss
Yeah.
to the Dallas Cowboys this time. And really, Joe Burrow has been sacked. What, John?
130
times?
times.
So
13.
7 plus 6, right? 13. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky number.
And he did what he could. You know, he had tied the score with his touchdown with 4 minutes remaining.
Once again, second
again.
week in a row,
But it
where he
wasn't
ties
enough.
the score at the end,
Was not
and
enough.
everybody lets him down.
And now everybody's like, we got to make some changes. We need some, what, John? Some coaching changes, some schematic changes.
Change the diaper.
The offense, just real quick before John goes, a lot of people are like, hey, we have a top 5 quarterback, top 5 receiver. We have receivers that are going to be making $30 million a year pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
2 of them. And then we have Tyler Boyd, who's very good in his own right.
Yeah.
And then we have, look, Hayden Hurst looks like a pretty good receiving
Up and coming.
option. And then we have Joe Mixon, who runs hard and he's very good in the passing game.
Yeah. And then our alumni are good. Did you guys see AJ Green save the game for the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a beautiful catch.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, John. I mean, it's like, you know, at some point we gotta be like, there's got to be a better way to utilize these players.
I believe passing them the ball would be the right way.
Well, so much has been made about making adjustments that I feel like we're glossing over the fact that they aren't even doing their base stuff effectively. And I don't like saying cliche stuff like this, but I mean, they're incredibly inconsistent with just execution. And I know there's not a lot of context or meat on the bone with that, but there's just blocks that are being missed. There's just reads that are being missed. There's not enough spacing in some of these routes, and it feels like we've been talking about some of these exact same things for years now. But it kind of just all piles up into one conglomerated mess, and you want to just point fingers at the offensive line. You want to point fingers at Zach Taylor. You want to point fingers at the coaching and technique that's being taught.
Yeah,
to some
which
of these
finger?
guys. I mean, well, it doesn't really matter what finger. Like, it just matters what
the
direction.
fingers Jamar showed.
Okay.
Like, the finger's just pointed at the team right now. Like, I
Because
don't
on Village
think
Island,
there's-
the thumb was the middle finger. Go ahead. Sorry.
there's no singular issue here aside from, I guess, if you can just boil it down to just coaching. And even still, like, talent at this level should be able to trump just gross ineffectiveness in that regard. But maybe it is a systemic issue within that team that they can't overcome what is happening right now. Like, yeah, sure. Like, play calling was just not good. Like, there's no way to really go around that right now. And I don't think it's almost like they're trying to do different things for the sake of trying to do different things. Like we're seeing more runs after shotgun. We're seeing more just drop back passing, and that's trying to go away from their traditional tendencies. But you still need to put guys in positions to succeed. You still need to be able to do things to beat the defenses that you're currently facing. And the defenses are just doing the same thing week after week, and you're not able to do it. Like the first half alone, they didn't have a single successful run. They were like negative 0.5 EPA per run on like the 5 or 6 runs that they had, and they were down for the most of the first half because the defense kind of got steamrolled there, so they were passing a lot, and they still couldn't figure out a way to get targets over the middle of the field. Joe Burrow is not passing well in the intermediate and deep center parts of the field, and that's the area that you need to attack against cover 2 defenses. And I know that in Tampa 2, you have the Mike linebacker dropping back into the deep center, but that opens up the exact middle of the field. And that's where they need to. That's where they need to go. They need those in-breaking routes. They need those slant flat concepts to just attack that part of the field because they can't go to the boundaries right now with safeties clogging that up.
John, you just saw on screen Ace Boogie's his poll. What's the bigger problem, coaching or offensive line? Now I realize both are not great. Now let's replace coaching with play calling. Let's focus on play calling. Which one, if you had to fix one first, would it be the play calling or would it be something to do with the offensive line? John.
I think the play calling is the bigger issue because you don't really have as much confidence that that's going to get fixed, because with the offensive line, at least you know that there's talent there, and after a certain part of the season, as time goes on, they gel together. They just play up to their level, and hopefully the coaching isn't too bad. Like I feel like we haven't really talked a lot about Frank Pollock, and maybe he's not getting the most out of his players right now. But then there's the whole argument of how much does an offensive line coach actually involve, like teaching technique and those types of things. But it does seem like they're just not getting as much as they could out of these guys, and maybe that's just because they're underperforming. They haven't really practiced that much altogether. But there's a lot of individual reps being lost on the offensive line, and that's unavoidable right now, and it needs to get fixed as soon as possible.
So to summarize, play calling is easier to fix in the short term. Okay, fine. To what degree is Joe Burrow to blame?
I want to ask a question though. I want to talk a little bit. So I was going back and forth. Is it play calling, or is it even before that? Like, do the Bengals have what they need in the playbook? Because
play writing.
Play design.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I think we saw with both Dallas and Pittsburgh, like they came out ready for everything we were dishing up. And what it looks like we want to dish up is everything that we played last season. And isn't the off season is when you watch the film of the other teams, see what they did, and then figure out what you're going to cook up to combat that. And so my curiosity is, were we resting on our laurels saying, okay, Joe has Jamar down there somewhere, we're going to kind of rely on those long passes. Now Joe's facing a lot of cover 2 defense. Do we need to go back in the lab and cook something up in terms of what's in the playbook? Is it less about even the play calling and more like how do we transform this team from who they were in 2021, which worked, but now you got to elevate. Well, you got to go to the next level.
I just want to butt in real quick, John. I had that feeling too while I was watching the game. To me, it looked like they have Joe Burrow figured out. John.
To Bridget's point, like last year, they really thrived off of wide zone action in the run game and just beating single high defenses with vertical routes on the boundary. Now you can't do that against teams that are playing 2 safeties back, and against light boxes. Like in a Tampa 2 cover 2 type of defense, you typically have 7 guys back in coverage and just 4 down linemen. That gives your offensive line chances to create movement and give your running back a chance to do something. And the whole saying is, once you get the running game started, you can get the play action or passing game started, even if that's not technically true. Because it's not technically true.
Because it's not true. That's old football. That's 90s football.
But even still, you can't be bad running the football and expect to be a consistently good offense. You still need success there. Yeah. And that mainly falls on the offensive line and also Joe Mixon actually breaking more than 2 tackles per game.
But Joe was good.
Yeah, that's true. So, they don't have a ton of experience having success against this type of coverage. And that's what they just need to continue hammering in practice. Like, they need those in-breaking routes to be successful. They need more spacing on them, and if that requires them trying new things, I think that should be what they do. But I think they are in right now. It's sort of a shift offensively in the run game. Their splits between wide zone or just zone and gap schemes in general is a lot more even than it has been in years past, even though Frank Pollock is more of a wide zone guy. So I feel like that's recognition of where their strengths are with the offensive line, and that could help rejuvenize the running game to that extent. But it still falls on the passing game and the timing with those routes and them coming open, and then Burrow having trust in his offensive line. Right now, that's just not the case.
Now, John, I want to get to a controversial tweet that you might have seen. And it's Joe Burrow, and he's holding his headset, and he just had some water, and he spits out, and he yells to the sideline. He says, I think he says no segue, or he says no setback. And
No
then
empty.
some people were saying it's go segue or go setback. The segue, for the viewers,
Well, here.
go segue. So a segue
Where
is,
did you get segue?
No empty set.
a segue is a
Well, here.
saying, I don't want to be scooted around. I don't want my knees to break again. I don't want to have to ride a Segway. A Segway is like an electric scooter. John, what does he mean by that? Why is it so mysterious? John.
Why do you have me on this show? What am I answering here? We just clearly heard him say no empty set because they were in cover 0. The defense was. So why, if you got man across the board and probably 5 blitzers, like next question, what are we doing?
No, what is
There's no segue, man. What are we doing?
empty set.
They're 0-2. You're making jokes.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's not a time to be funny.
No, but seriously. So no empty set. He means by that what?
Are we this desperate for content? What are we doing?
Nobody. He's complaining. It sounds like a complaint. It sounds like he's stuck. He's struggling.
Oh, so you're projecting him yelling at his coach as like tension arising in the locker room?
John,
It's not.
look, John.
He doesn't look happy. Can you read it again, Daddy? He does not look happy, John.
No,
Maybe.
that's not about. He has realized while he liked the empty sets originally, John, right? He liked the idea originally. With this offensive line and this kind of protection and these kind of schemes, the routes that they're running, he knows it's not working anymore.
He was 6 for 6 for 76 yards on empty sets. You know why? Because against empty sets, the ball typically gets out quicker. When the ball gets out quicker, your offensive line is not tasked to do much or block for very long. You have routes designed to get open very quickly. He was fine there, but you can't do it every single down because, like you said, the offensive line can't be trusted to just one-on-one situations right now.
Okay, so what happens after he says that? Do they do one or not?
They had to call timeout. It was like on the 3rd down. I don't think they were able
And
to
then
get...
they had Mixon blocking.
Yeah.
And then I think he got sacked, and then they kicked the field goal.
Well,
Right?
I don't know what Mixon was doing on that play because he ran into his own left tackle looking the opposite side of the formation. And then you had 4 routes down the field. 2 of them came open. And maybe if Burrow wasn't, I guess, rattled at this point, he could step up into the pocket and make a throw. But he was, again, 3rd and 4. You have man coverage down the field. You have space potentially for him to run and make a play with his legs. But then the pocket kind of collapsed inside of him because right now, left side of the offensive line, like I think they're clearly taking advantage of the fact that Cordell Volson is not going to give Jonah Williams help whenever a rusher goes inside on Williams. So Williams is taking his guy to the inside, and then you have a stunt action on Volson who's now going to the outside. So the entire integrity of the pocket on the left side of the offensive line right now is in disarray.
One-on-one. He doesn't even.
No, play the clip. Play the clip.
Play the clip.
Yeah, so this is about, sorry, this is, I forgot that it mutes everybody, but this is the Jonah Williams giving up the sack to Micah Parsons, right, John?
Be one-on-one. He doesn't even feel like anyone's there. And this time he goes up and under, and now he just goes right around. And Williams, you really don't have a chance. I mean, this guy is on pace.
Well,
I
that
wish
time,
it
yeah, that
muted
time
Tony
Parsons
Romo.
went around him. So
That almost looked like it was going to be a fumble.
Jonah's just not doing well right now. And I don't think Volson in a vacuum is playing bad necessarily, but Williams has been really disappointing along with Lel Collins, who
So-
in an environment where he should have had a revenge game, he looked like a castaway. Like
So-
he did
so-
not look good.
Yeah, Lael has been disappointment, obviously. But also, John, let's admit it, I mean, we're not getting the best play calls on the line. So, like this one.
I want to block that guy. Not good.
What was wrong with the play there?
I don't. Clearly, he was supposed to be blocked, and he wasn't. He down blocked the tackle there, and he left Micah Parsons in a 2-point stance on the edge, wide open.
So it sounds like a performance issue more than a play calling issue.
I mean, those
Well,
issues
it's
shouldn't exist.
Coordination, right, John? I mean, it's communication. It's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Well, look, when I'm watching these games, I personally look at it very differently from both of you. I see it as a deficiency of talent in the offensive line. Period.
No, I mean, there's offensive lines that have the same amount of talent that they're
Or
playing
worse.
better than this. Yeah, like the with the Lions, right? The Lions, John.
I think the Lions have a talented offensive line, but like people always talk about continuity with that unit, and they don't have any right now. Like it's the second game that all these guys are playing together. You have 4 new starters going back to last year. That's why I think even their bad offensive line from last year, it's outperforming to some extent the offensive line this year, just because they got to know each other as the year went on, and they just understood each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they're able to at least grind out performances that gave the offense a chance. And I know it's not just the offensive line right now. It's going to be Burrow holding on to the football, letting these plays develop, because he's still struggling to face some of these coverages, and that needs to get ironed out too. But the offensive line it's just losing reps that it shouldn't with guys this good.
So the real question then is, any formula you come up for failure must also explain success. Why is it the case that things start to work in quarter 3 and then really start to work in quarter 4?
So that's my question, Hoji. And I was thinking about this. I had to get an MRI this morning, and I'm fine. But I was thinking about this while I was sitting in there, because you lay there and it sounds like a jackhammer. And here we're a learning organization, right? And that we don't learn. So we're a lack of learning organization. But I think the Bengals could be a learning organization. And one of the things I'm really, really interested in, so Lou Anarumo and his unit have an innate ability to make the quarter 3 and 4 adjustment, right? They did it against the Chiefs twice. They've done it multiple times to have those second half comebacks. I want to know, what is it about Lou, about the defense, that enables them to, whether it's going in at halftime or what they're doing at the end of the second quarter, to say, okay, here's what we're seeing, here's how we're going to adjust. They held the Cowboys to just 3 points in the second half, that game-winning field goal at the end. What is it about the offense that doesn't enable them to do that, and what could they learn? I feel like there's like a bright spot analysis this team could do, looking at the defense and figuring out what they could translate to the offense. I know we said earlier it wasn't just adjustments. Matilda totally agrees. But I do think there's offensive adjustments that could be made, and that team has the ability to do that. How could they leverage that from the personnel they already have? Because I think it's there, and they need to just utilize it.
So I have a wild theory in response, Bridget, and John can
Tell us.
And Matilda.
probably blow it out of the water when I'm done saying it. So Joe Burrow is not a coach. And so when they're preparing for games and watching the films, he's in a passive role. He's listening to what he wants to do. He has some feedback that he gives, but then when they actually play the games and they see what's going on, come halftime, they're stuck, they're losing. They start to listen to Joe Burrow because he's there on the field. And Joe Burrow starts to give them more insights about, okay, this is what we're going to do in the second half. Boom, everything starts to look better. And I know that sounds crazy, but I really think that what you're seeing in the first half is the coaching staff making a lot of decisions, and what you're seeing in the second half is Joe Burrow making a lot of decisions, and that's where the improvement comes from.
I would say something close. I would say when we're behind, and it's not just Joe Burrow. I've seen it with a lot of good quarterbacks. When they are, it's almost like a no huddle, or it's kind of like they can get into a rhythm and they just kind of go with what they're feeling in the moment, and they take more of the offense into their own hands, and they're playing from behind, so you tend to throw the ball more. You get a couple of completions, and you get in that groove. What I feel like, here's the thing: the last year Joe Burrow took 70 sacks, everybody in the org, and he just lost an appendix, and everybody's worried about him getting hit more and more. And,
Wait a minute. I don't think the appendix was related to the sacks.
Well, I think John, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he could be more vulnerable to some sort of bad injury, right? Because of the appendix. I mean,
No.
I'm sure he had like stitches in his stuff, right?
I mean,
I
they
don't
use
know.
laser now. It's not. They
Yeah.
don't really cut with a machete and stuff.
Anyways, here's the thing. I feel like they are trying to, think of solutions in terms of try to avoid Joe Burrow getting hit. And John, we talk about the play calling. A lot of people have a problem with the fact that we go run, pass most of the time. So I get how you want to mitigate the pass rush by running the ball a lot, but why in such a predictable fashion? Why go run, pass, run, pass?
What would you do? Pass, run?
Well, they don't. I mean, I don't think it's not Bob Gronkowski offense out there. It's not just first down, second down, run, third down, pass. Like, it's not necessarily been that.
A lot of times it was.
Most of the time, it looks like that.
But it feels like in the second half when they were in the groove, it was less of that, is what I'm saying, because
No.
there's less a structure, there's more, you're less in your own head, it's more instinctual.
Again, they ran the ball 5 times in the first half. 5 times. They weren't always 3 and out on offense there. Like, clearly their biggest issues involve pass protection in that sense. And I don't know, like, what was the other part of the question? You kind of lost me.
Yeah, Daddy, I got to say, your theory kind of went over my head as well. I'm wondering if we can go back to my theory about Joe Burrow making more decisions in the second half, because I feel like that was a more interesting theory.
Yeah.
John. John.
Okay, I'm going to take a break from talking.
Let's talk about
way
the
too
Jets.
much.
John's
Let's
talking
move on. Let's move on, and let's talk about the Jets game.
Are you
John.
sure?
Yeah.
I just said I'm taking a break. You guys talk.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
let's
here's
talk
the
about the
thing.
Jets. The Jets.
Look,
The Jets are
the
from New
Bengals-
York.
I
Nobody
think-
knows why they're called the Jets and why they're green. Go.
3 weeks ago, if we said, "Oh, the Jets are coming up," everybody said, "Oh, that's an easy win." Last week they said the Cowboys easy win. The problem with the Bengals is that they're just not in sync right now.
No.
It's not that they lack talent. The team, the offense especially,
They're in
is just not
stink.
sync.
Is the word. Yeah.
Yeah. And when that is the case, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Any team that, and the thing is, people are coming for us this year.
Oh, yeah.
They
They're hungry.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, you guys think you're so special now? Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to show you. We're going to put you back in your place."
Yeah.
So now we face a very interesting New York Jets team, John, that is coached by Robert Saleh, and he's known for being a defensive coach. And I think in the first, I think it was against the Browns. I think the first week they lost against the Ravens, but they did pretty good against the pass, I believe. Against the run, I believe. And then last week, they gave up a lot of points, a lot of rushing yards early, but they just kind of kept clawing back. And it was kind of like,
I feel like, Daddy, you're making it way too complicated. There's only one question you need to ask with any team that the Bengals play. How is the pass rush?
I
If
don't
strong,
know, John. I mean,
if
John, look,
strong,
if Cooper Rush
we
didn't
suck.
have a good game, we couldn't have won that game. Cooper Rush also had a good game.
There is
I
no
know.
secondary that can beat our receivers.
Cooper Rush made some good throws, but I feel like
Yeah.
at the end he was barely better than what Burrow was.
Wait, Joe Burrow
I
is
think-
the greatest. Hold on.
Cooper Rush had confidence.
Yes.
Cooper Rush was just like, here I am. I'm going to throw some dimes on third downs. Their third down conversion percentage, I didn't look up the stats, but in the first half, I feel like the Cowboys were converting
I think
just
ours was
about
better, right, John? We had a
in the
better third
first
down.
half.
No, overall we had a better.
No, I'm talking about just the first half, not overall, because then we started to convert more. They started to have to punt more. But Cooper Rush just seemed like, what do I have to lose? And I feel like Joe Burrow seemed spooked a little.
He seems shook.
And you got guys coming after you. You've been sacked 13 times now in 2 games. The closest other team, I think, is the Saints. Jameis Winston maybe has been sacked 10 times.
Yeah.
Let's just John. Let's just real quick. Let's talk about the psychology of this. So they say getting hit by a defensive lineman, by one of these guys, is like a car accident, right? And I mean, I'm a bad parker, so technically I get in car accidents every day, but they are talking about the more violent kind of car
No, they're
accidents.
talking about the people you hit, not
Right.
you, not the effect that
Right.
it has on you, but when you hit people with your car, that's what
I
it's
see.
like.
So, John, the point is, Joe Burrow was sacked 70 times, hit probably another, 30, 40, 50 times, right? Last year, you know? And his rookie year, he was getting beaten up. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the way his knee was shredded was horrific, you know?
Yes.
And so we always admire Joe Burrow because he seemed to be immune to that. So against the Titans in the playoffs, 9 sacks is like, he just brushes it off and throws some clutch, conversions, and we win the game. And that's just Joe Burrow, right? And then in the Rams game, people were like, oh, he's not quite Joe Burrow. He's not quite this. Well, the defensive, the pass rush was at a different level, but at the same time, maybe the coaching staff and him, they're just worried about him getting hit because, his body will fall apart eventually. I mean, what will be the next organ to go after the appendix, John? I don't know the order, but
I don't know if they are worried about him getting hit. Like, I don't think Burrow has continued to be the guy that's like, football is about taking on contact. You get a certain feel for the game when, you kind of get roughed up a little bit. Now, obviously, this is a problem for the long term more than just looking at next week. If he does take too many hits over the course of his career, stuff could happen and he might not be able to play anymore, or maybe his entire mentality is changed. But just from a short-term perspective, I don't think that 2 weeks of getting sacked a ton does anything to Burrow that the last 30 games of his career had already done. Like, he's already been sacked and hit a ton of times, and he's not a guy to shy away from those hits like that. Now, there were instances in the game where, at least where you could see from the broadcast angle, where it did seem like he abandoned on some pockets that he probably shouldn't have, because he was kind of anticipating contact to be coming from his blind side, or he just tried to bail out as soon as possible to not take another negative play. It's the negative plays right now, regardless of the sacks, that are really putting this offense in a bind and really making it hard for them to just execute what they want to execute. And I think to Bridget's earlier point about just how they haven't been able to get off to a hot start, how they've had to wait to the second half to make adjustments. Through 2 weeks now, you've had a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that went out with a lot more cover 2 and Tampa 2 looks when they were primarily like a cover 1 or cover 3 defense last year. And then you just had Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator, say that they weren't expecting Micah Parsons to be rushing off the edge and less from an off-ball linebacker position compared to where he was last year. So they've run into two pretty talented defenses doing different things that they had done in the past, and that's where they had most of their preparations lined up for, which is naturally just an early in the season type of situation. But also, like you said, like, these are things that you should probably be able to, diagnose a little bit quicker so you don't end up in this giant hole.
Yeah. I mean, John, I just want to look at, he's like we said, he's still Joe Burrow. And let's just look at a couple of clips here.
Here's Burrow looking for a second option, sliding. Signals, throws.
So
That's equally a great catch and a great throw.
I mean, the thing to me is, John, is that when he's locked in, when he feels like it's his time, he comes alive. So how do you unlock that? How do you, as a coach,
Yeah.
I'm not
let
a
it
coach,
be
man. I don't
Joe
have
Burrow's
these answers.
No, he's getting into.
These are
I
very
get it.
philosophical questions
Yeah,
that I don't
Daniel
have
is
the
get-
answers to.
Peyton
Daniel, you're
Manning's
getting into alternative
coaches
psychology.
let the offenses be Peyton Manning's offense. You see what I mean? Like, Peyton Manning had a lot of coaches, but there was always a Peyton Manning offense. How do you do that with the Joe Burrow?
I guess you just give him all the responsibilities if you want to. Like,
Can you? Can you?
I don't know if he's mature enough for that. I love him, but I mean, it's hard to say if Joe Burrow is ready for that
to his
position.
point, like, I can't think of like one offensive mastermind who had ever worked with Peyton Manning necessarily. Like,
Right.
Brian Callahan was a good quarterbacks coach at the time, but I mean,
They gave Adam Gase all that credit. You know,
It wasn't. It was never Adam Gase.
I know, but I mean,
that
he got like
that was
4
Peyton
jobs out of
Manning
it.
in his 15th year. Like we don't
Right.
know. I couldn't tell you what the 2002 Colts offense was when Peyton Manning was in his 3rd year in the league.
Right. Exactly.
You know, I never realized how smart Peyton Manning is.
I didn't say
until-
Daddio because I made that point.
No, I never realized how smart Peyton Manning is until he did that show with his little brother, Eli. And they were analyzing, I think it was a Joe Burrow play, and it was amazing. I mean, the amount of depth, the little things that he was looking at. I realized that Peyton Manning wanted to be a QB coach or a head coach. He'd be amazing. Now,
Yeah.
is that true for Burrow? We don't know.
Yes.
The kid is like 20. I mean, he's in his 20s.
Yeah.
And the guy's just trying to stay alive out there.
Yeah.
You're saying make him a Peyton Manning. I just don't want him to be an Andrew Luck.
Here's the thing. I want to talk about the Jets game, John. And I
There's
want
not
talk
much to
about-
say about the Jets game. How's the pass rush on the
Hoji,
Jets?
I did look. I know why they're called the Jets.
Oh, yeah.
Because it rhymes with the Mets. One of the owners,
That's
they were
so
sharing
lame.
a state. I
his
know.
name?
I mean, it fits though, right?
And why
In the-
green? Jets are
because
usually-
the owners at the owner at the time, whoever bought it, changed the name to the Jets because they were playing at the same stadium as the Mets. His birthday was St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, wow.
John, so I
So
want to ask
random.
you. I want to ask
thank
you about how afraid we should be of the Jets, and I want to show you a couple clips, and you tell me what you see.
Jets offensive line holding up well there. Flacco wide open. It's Davis. Davis. Walt.
Wide open.
See some bad defense. What I just saw.
And then how about this
I mean,
one?
that's a
Flacco over the middle. It's caught. Touchdown.
So
misread. That was a misread.
that is a Browns defense that's talented and a team that is trying to be in playoff position for when they get their quarterback back, and they gave up, 2 touchdown lead with like a minute and a half left to Joe Flacco. And I feel like Flacco has won over that locker room and the coach with his leadership. And I feel like our defense is great, but we will have to put up points because they are not going to be afraid of us.
Nor should they be.
Yeah.
Not with what we've shown.
I'm curious what the Jets defense is right now because, again, they're another team that I think at their core they wanted to run more single high things. That's why they invested in Sauce Gardner, the cornerback out of UC, because he's that cornerback that you can leave on an island and take away like a third of the field when you're in a single high defense. So if that's the case, then this is an opportunity for the Bengals to have a bounce back performance because they're going up against a defense where they can just take advantage of. But if the Jets have any ounce of brain power, they can just they would know what defense to run right now until the Bengals prove that they can stop it. And unfortunately, I think the Jets defensive line is pretty damn talented to
Pretty
stop,
damn talented.
yeah, like to stop the Bengals run game, unless the Bengals just fully commit to this inside zone and these gap schemes and these concepts that they clearly are better at running compared to wide zone. Like they're going to be stuck in a situation where they're going to rely on their passing game to just iron itself out against a defense that can rush the passer. So I don't know. It's not looking great.
I mean, the problem that we have,
Yeah. John,
That
I
was
want-
me. That was my ESPN stats.
the problem that we have is, from what I understand, and I don't know a lot about the Jets, but I believe that their pass rush is way stronger than, their defense against the running game. They invested a lot in the pass rush, and that's not a good thing for us. I mean, I don't think this is the comeback game, personally. I don't see how it would be the comeback game, personally.
Well, they just need to turn the ball over. They need Flacco to just air it out there and have defensive backs make plays. I don't think the Browns defense is necessarily great right now. It seems like they're the equivalent of the Bengals offense, just a lot of talent and not a lot of output. So maybe that 4 touchdown performance might be a fluke, but Flacco can still sling it. So there's chances where he can break the Bengals defense out for long gains, but they need to give their offense as many chances as possible to just correct itself.
Yeah.
Are the Jets playing Uzama at all?
He's going to be a game time decision, I think. He's hurt right now.
Oh, I didn't know he got injured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dodge the
Because I
bullets
feel
there.
like there's a little bit of that too. I don't know if that energy. They come in kind of wanting to remind CJ who's boss, but I don't know.
I feel like we need to win a game. more than to remind people.
It'd
who's
be
lost,
nice.
John.
You're just
I-
on fire today.
I think you remind people by winning.
Yeah.
I think that was my point.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you for joining us and for the conversation. Very insightful.
Was John our
live.
guest today?
Well, he talked most of the time. He talked
I
a lot.
feel like a guest most of the time.
Yeah, we treat him with respect. We're very hospitable.
Well, not in those ways.
We don't charge him for his snacks.
So no Hojoscope today then?
I'm
I can-
supposed to come to John's house to eat the snacks on that new sofa. Okay, yes, we do have a Hojos.
You sure? I can do
Very
it
good
next
point.
week if you don't want, but I
No,
might
we
as well.
do.
Now,
So,
okay, play this video because my Hojoscope today is about compassion. And Daddio, if you would, play the... Now, I don't know if you guys could see what was going on there, but me and my friends, I'm holding the camera. We were mourning the animal lives that had to be lost in making all that, dead carcass for everyone to eat and to enjoy. And my only point here tonight is about compassion. A lot of you Bengals fans out there, and I'm not looking at you, Bridget. I'm not looking at you, John. But I'm looking at a lot of those haters out there who overreact at the loss and forget that the same Zach Taylor that you're saying off with his head, put him in the meat section, and the same Joe Burrow that you're saying is no better than Andy Dalton. These are the same people who brought you hours of joy last year, made you hold your head high, and took you all the way to the Super Bowl. These are the same people. It's a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy. And I think you have to ask yourself the question, why do you want to win so badly? What is it about winning that means so much to you? Is it the same animalistic drive that makes you want to kill animals and eat them? Is it the same as when you say, oh, I'm just like anybody else. I eat my friends one leg at a time. Think about that. That is my Hojoscope.
Man, those look tasty.
I do appreciate Hoji though, the overreactions. I mean, it's 2 weeks. We all know 3 data points make a trend. So we're certainly seeing things that need to be fixed. We can call it out. I don't think, like I said, week 1 isn't a referendum. I don't think week 2 is a referendum. I think there's definitely predictability in the offense that opposing teams' defenses are seeing. That needs to get tightened up. Joe Burrow needs to get sacked less. That needs to be tightened up. I don't think that, like I said last week, I don't think that blame falls on any one person. Burrow's holding the ball a little long. Some of these sacks are coverage sacks. Some of these sacks are him not getting the ball out. And some of these sacks are O-line breakdowns. So I think
Yeah,
there are things we can improve. So
I
I don't
just-
think the doomsdaying and the off with their heads is quite right yet.
No, the whole Joe Burrow hold the ball too long. He doesn't make the easy reads. I don't accept that criticism. That's what it looks like. But as I said, the offense is out of sync. An offense out of sync is when you see, I've said this before, John, and I believe there are analytics that back it up. When you have a bad quarterback, a lot of people are like, oh, but his receivers have a higher dropped pass percentage, dropped reception rate as well. That is also on the bad quarterback because he's gotten them out of sync. That is what I believe. I believe that when you're out of sync, you're not in the flow, everything becomes more difficult. And this offense is out of sync because the pass protection was bad for so long and it hasn't taken a step forward, but they're trying to pretend that the problem isn't there. They're trying to work around it. And, it's both the play calling and the offensive line coaching. And Joe Burrow, there are times where he does have protection. There are times where there's an easy 5-yard route or whatever.
Yeah,
But
and
he's
that
just
being
gotten-
said,
yeah.
and that being said, Daddio, Joe Burrow is not Kyler Murray. He's not going to be, not with the knees he has. I watched Kyler Murray, and that guy,
He has
I mean,
knees. Yeah.
he can avoid, he doesn't need a great offensive line. He can avoid a lot of things. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that Joe Burrow is the kind of quarterback that's going to need more protection than others because of his
I don't
style
know
of
about
play.
that.
Because he
No.
likes to hold the ball,
No,
because he likes
actually-
to sit back and look at
No.
the opportunities. I
John.
don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, Joe Burrow did not have a great offensive line at LSU, right, John? I mean, by college standards.
But
And
he was a kid.
Yeah, but I
He's a
think,
man
John,
now.
again, I think it's the flow. I think it's Joe Burrow needs to know he can trust his offensive line if he wants to roll left, if he wants to roll right. He can move around the pocket. He just needs to know that there's going to be competence there, right? Like that one where Micah Parsons went unblocked. That shouldn't have happened. Yes, if Micah Parsons gets to you in 2 seconds, okay. But if he gets to you in half a second, that throws you off your game.
You know what I hate about when the show runs long is that if Daddy-O talks just long enough, he'll say something that makes sense. And I'm really disappointed in that. But yeah,
it
Daddy-O's
happened.
right.
It happened.
So with that, do we
Hold
end
on, hold
that?
on. I want to hear what John has to say.
No. We can't.
I
The
said
show
it
must
now.
end now because you have said something that
Well,
makes
does
sense.
anyone want to
The
make
circle is complete.
someone in the comments said Bengals beat the Jets by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, let's make predictions.
Never.
Go ahead, Bridget. go.
Bengals don't beat anybody by 3
I,
touchdowns.
none
That's
of
not
my
how they work.
predictions have been right. I feel like I've got the John curse, and every time now this year I've said the Bengals are going to win, we lose. So I don't know if I should
No,
say we
this-
lose.
What
John.
curse? There's a curse?
I thought you
Your
said
curse
last,
that you had
I
last
thought,
year,
yeah,
remember?
the last
You
every
cursed
time
the Super Bowl, remember? You
Well, I
cursed
don't
the Super
remember
Bowl.
that.
you said it on a show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you
I got a short memory.
You
were
predicted
goldfish.
every playoff
John,
game to
I
be
f- I
a
believe-
loss and
look,
they won. Then you
the
predicted
curse has
Super
been
Bowl.
reset, John. I believe it may be that if you predict them to win, you will speak it into existence and they will win.
Okay.
All right, they win.
Why doesn't everybody just say what they actually think
What's
is
the
going to
score?
happen?
Player
Why
of
doesn't
the
everybody
game
say what's
and
actually
the
going to
score.
happen?
Yeah, go.
I hate this. It's like icebreakers in like college. Like, oh, who's your favorite player?
John
Oh,
was
so-
very fun at parties, by the way. Go ahead.
John, your hat says just do it, but your eyes say just don't.
Yeah, my eyes are right.
So I predict the Bengals loss. I think it's going to be pretty close, but not as close as our other losses. But that's okay. I still don't think the season is done, even after a 0-3 start. I think that's when the Bengals are going to pick up. Remember, you can still make it to the playoffs with 3 losses. And I
Okay.
think that because of the powerful
Well-
pass rush of the Jets.
I think
Next.
I agree with Hoji. I don't know that we turn it around this week, and I don't think that's a like Hoji said. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the Jets get the W.
There is something to be said about when optimism is at an all-time low with this team. They somehow manage to just pick it right back up and just give you false hope. So maybe that unexplainable phenomenon rears its head this week. I'll go with the win.
Thank you, John. Yeah, they're going to win. I'll tell you why they're going to win. Joe Burrow, we talk a lot about how, oh, don't upset Joe Burrow. What's that guy's name? The Ravens guy, Wink Martindale or whatever. And the guy in LSU who has spit on him and all that. We're like, oh, you got Joe Burrow upset. I feel like some of that is a little mythical. But what I do know about Joe Burrow is that he, deep in his heart, believes that he has the potential to be the greatest quarterback ever.
Okay, can I say
And
something?
the reason, yeah,
Can I say something really strange?
yeah.
And I don't want to jinx anybody, but I think there's a possibility that Joe Burrow doesn't play a few games because of a minor injury that's going to happen to his thumb. And you're going to ask me how I know, and that's because of the mind-body connection. Most injuries are not of the body. They are an effect of the mind and the soul on the body. And I believe that Joe Burrow is hurting, and his conversations with Cowherd are not helping. And
Yeah.
I believe that what's going to happen is that he's going to have a minor injury,
Well,
miss
let
2 or 3
me
games.
just finish this because I feel like John wants to go. I believe that Joe Burrow's confidence is what gets him out of this rut. Not the coaching changes, not the schematic, none of that. I feel like he just says to himself, you know what, Joe, you're better than this. Go do what you can do. And he starts getting in the groove on his own. He finds a way to motivate himself, get in the groove. Yes, he has his first multi-touchdown game. Well, I mean, he had 2. But he's going to have 3 or 4 touchdowns against
Not
the
yet.
Jets. Jets are not going to be able to catch up. he knows to expect terrible offensive line blocking this time, like he did in the playoffs, but he worked around it. He's going to go back to he's been John, how many 6 weeks removed from the appendix surgery now? It's finally he's finally going to.
Appendix surgery has nothing to do
It's
with
like
anything
2
you've seen
months
this
out.
season. It's a minor surgery that he was over way before he started.
Okay, that's all I got.
And let's just say, if you can share this podcast, get Joe
Yes.
Burrow to watch it.
Get him on the show.
He wants to hear. Matilda came on specifically. She knew Joe Burrow is a cat guy, and she's like, I'm going to do my part. So
I'm a cat guy too.
Subscribe.
and
John's
I'm better than
definitely a
Cowherd.
cat
I love
guy.
you more than Cowherd, Joe Burrow.
Yeah. Turn on the notifications. Tell your friends about us. We're the #1 Bengals podcast. We're
And
on.
predictions about the
Believe-
Jet games in the comments.
Right.
and tell us why
uh,
any of us are wrong or why I'm right.
And cheer up John in the comments.
Yeah. That's all we got. So long, sweetie. Bye.